Continuing with chapter number 4, Human Development, today we will be studying about the changes that take place during adolescence. Adolescence is commonly defined as the stage of life that begins at the onset of puberty when sexual maturity or the ability to reproduce is attained. So, when individuals attain puberty and are able to reproduce, that's the time when adolescence stage starts. This period is of rapid change both biologically and psychologically. This is the stage that you are in now. Though the physical changes are universal, social and psychological dimensions of the adolescent's experiences depend on the cultural context. So the physical changes that we undergo are universal, it's same all over the world, but the social and psychological changes depend on the culture that we are brought up in. So within adolescence, we'll be studying about physical development, cognitive development, forming an identity, and some major concerns of adolescence. Physical development. Puberty or sexual maturation marks the end of childhood and signifies the beginning of adolescence, which is characterized by dramatic physical changes in both growth rate and sexual characteristics. Puberty is not a sudden event, it is a gradual process. The hormones released during puberty result in the development of primary and secondary sexual characteristics. So, since you've studied the endocrine system, you know that there are different kinds of hormones produced in our body which are responsible for various functions, okay, within the body. So, the hormones that are released in your body during puberty are responsible for the development of something known as primary and secondary sexual characteristics. The primary sex characteristics include those directly related to reproduction. Secondary sex characteristics include features or signs of achieving sexual maturity. Pubertal changes in boys are marked by acceleration in growth, facial hair, and changes in voice. In girls, rapid rate in height usually begins about 2 years before menarche. So, before girls attain menarche, 2 years before they attain menarche, their height begins to grow. Menarche means the onset of menstruation. So when the girls have their first period, that is known as menarche. Growth spurt begins at age 12 or 13 for boys and at age 10 or 15, or 11 for girls. There may be variations in the pubertal sequence. So it is not necessary that all girls will attain puberty in between 10 to 11 years or all boys will attain puberty in between 12 to 13 years. There may be some variations. Physical development during adolescence is accompanied by a number of psychological changes. Since all of us have undergone this stage, we must know what are the changes that we undergo, and you are actually undergoing this kind of changes now. They show increase in interest in members of opposite sex and in sexual matters. A new awareness of sexual feelings develops. Sex is a topic parents find very difficult to discuss with children. Um, However, it will be healthier and it will be much better if parents discuss about these kind of topics directly with their children. Concern over adolescent sexuality has become intense in recent times because of the risk of AIDS and other sexually transmitted diseases. Cognitive developmental changes. Adolescents' thought become more abstract, logical, and idealistic. They become more capable of examining their own thoughts, others' thoughts, and what others are thinking about them. So their ability to think or their ability to process things cognitively becomes more complex as they reach this particular stage. Jean Piaget believed that formal operational thought appears between 11 to 15 years. They begin to think about ideal characteristics for themselves and others and compare themselves with others with these ideal standards. So at this stage, they're able to find out ideal or perfect characteristics of how they should be or how others should be. Okay, for example, As an adolescent, an individual may start thinking of ideal characteristics of how a parent should be. Okay, so a parent should have enough time for for their children. A parent should be loving, caring, providing, right? So the adolescent will think that these are the characteristics that a parent should have, and then the adolescent is going to compare these ideal characteristics with the characteristics of his or her parent, right? So this is what they're able to do at this stage, and they may complain things like, my friend's father is like this but you are like this, and my friend's father did this for him, you should also be doing this for me. So this is the time when they're able to make these comparisons. For example, they may think what an ideal parent is like and compare their parents with these ideal standards. They are also able to engage in something known as hypothetical deductive reasoning. They think of possible courses of action and systematically seek solutions, meaning they're able to foresee the consequences of their behavior. They're able to understand that if I don't study for my exams, I will not score good marks and I will not get a rank, or I will be scolded by my teachers and it will make my parents upset. Right? So that is hypothetical deductive reasoning, when people are able to analyze the consequences of the behaviors that they're going to engage in. Logical thought also influences the development of moral reasoning. Social rules are not considered as absolute standards, and moral thinking shows some flexibility. So, by this stage, individuals are not looking at something as right or wrong based on getting punished or being rewarded. Okay, so they think very logically, they take into consideration social rules and laws and all of that, but there is more flexibility, they also do their own analysis on their part. Adolescents also develop a special kind of egocentrism. So we had studied about this term egocentrism during infancy stage, okay, during childhood stage, where children are egocentric and they think that their perspective is the only perspective, and they cannot appreciate the fact that other people will have their own different perspectives. So similar kind of egocentrism is also there during adolescence, but it's slightly different. According to David Elkind, the two components of egocentrism during adolescence are imaginary audience and personal fable. You will be able to relate to these two concepts very well. Imaginary audience is the belief that others are as preoccupied with them as they are about themselves. So, this is the stage when adolescents feel that everyone around them is observing them. Okay, so you as an adolescent, you're very conscious and concerned about the way you look, the way you talk, how you walk, and how you present yourself in front of others, right? So you're very preoccupied with all those things about yourself, and you also have this belief that all the other people around you are also looking at you and are also analyzing you, right? So that is known as imaginary audience. You're just imagining an audience around you, but it's not really there. So if there is a small ink stain in your shirt, you feel that everyone uh, throughout the day is only looking at that ink stain in your shirt. So that is an example of imaginary audience. The other one is personal fable. This part of adolescence egocentrism involves their sense of uniqueness. Their sense of uniqueness makes them feel like nobody understands them. So each adolescent at this stage feel that they're very unique, so unique that they feel like nobody understands them. You might find yourself complaining things to your mother sometimes, saying, you don't understand me, or you can't relate to what I'm saying, those kind of things. Okay, so adolescents, this is known as personal fable, where they feel that they're very unique and nobody understands them. Forming an identity is the next thing that we're going to study about adolescence. Identity is who you are and what your values, commitments, and beliefs are. The primary task of adolescence is to establish an identity separate from the parents. So, this is a very important task and a milestone that individuals have to undergo, where they begin to understand that they are uh, separate entity, and they are a separate person, and they're not attached physically to their parents or even mentally, right? So this is known as forming an identity, where the individual understands that so if I am an adolescent, when I understand that I am this person, and these are my parents, so I will have my own thought processes, I will have my own values, commitments, and beliefs. Eric Erikson, the same psychologist that I had mentioned about while studying infancy when I talked about trust versus mistrust, Eric Erikson had given 8 stages of psychosocial development, and one of the stages is called identity versus role confusion. This is a stage during adolescence, okay? So there is a time when the adolescent is trying to form his or her own identity. And if he is unable to form that identity, he or she is going to face role confusion. Identity confusion can lead to individuals isolating themselves from peers and family, or they may lose their identity in the crowd. So, having to form your identity during this stage is very important to understand who you are as a person, what kind of things do you like, and how do you want to be, should you be kind or not, these kind of things. Okay, when you're able to answer these questions about yourself, you form your identity. Otherwise you may uh, face role confusion, and you isolate or separate yourself from peers and family, and sometimes you may lose your identity in the crowd. Now, there are some major concerns that we should consider when we talk about adolescence. They are delinquency, substance abuse, and eating disorders. Delinquency means um, a variety of behaviors ranging from socially unacceptable behavior, legal offenses, to criminal acts. So, an adolescent is known as a so if an adolescent does not abide by the rules and laws of the society and perform acts which are um, which are unacceptable by the society, or which are considered as wrong or incorrect by the society, then that adolescent is known as a delinquent. Okay, so any individual below the age of 18 years who commits a crime or who does something unacceptable is considered a delinquent. So during adolescence, there are high chances that they may engage in acts of vandalism, truancy, running away from home, stealing, or burglary. Truancy is remaining absent from school without any justification, without giving an explanation for a long time. Sometimes they may also run away from home after having a fight or a quarrel with the parents. Vandalism is when the individual intentionally engages in activities to destroy things, public property, private property, breaks into someone's house. So that is delinquency. However, these changes are not permanent, and as they grow, they develop social responsibilities, and they develop feelings of self-worth, and they start imitating positive behaviors of other people in the society. Next one is substance abuse. Um, Adolescents at this stage become very vulnerable to engaging in activities like smoking, alcohol consumption, drug abuse. So, individuals during this stage perceive themselves as being um, as being faced with a lot of stressful situations. Okay, and they feel that when they consume alcohol, or when they use drug, or they start to smoke, they feel that all that stress will be reduced, and they feel like it is going to help them to relieve all that stress, and therefore they engage in these activities. Or sometimes also due to peer pressure, they feel that if they don't engage in this kind of activities, they will not be considered cool, or they will not be accepted by his or her friends. So and therefore they engage in these activities, and sometimes they just out of curiosity they try these things, and which is very unhealthy, because you may have the intention of just trying something, but once someone enjoys the effect of a particular substance, it becomes a habit, and it can lead to dependence on those substances. And once an individual becomes dependent on a substance, it turns into a substance abuse disorder. So it may have very serious consequences. Next one is eating disorders. Adolescents have the tendency to, or there are chances that you may find adolescents with eating disorders of two types: anorexia nervosa and bulimia nervosa. So this is a stage when individuals are very concerned about their looks and about their figure and physique, and therefore they may develop these two eating disorders. Anorexia nervosa involves relentless pursuit of thinness through starvation. So an individual with anorexia nervosa looks at himself or herself in the mirror and perceives himself or herself as being very fat, okay, and that bothers them to a very great extent, and therefore they eliminate certain foods from their diets and eat slimming foods only. So they mostly depend on liquid food. They drink juice and uh, they drink a lot of water to just fill up the stomach so that they won't eat anything fatty. So that's anorexia nervosa. Many people in the film industry suffer from anorexia nervosa. One example is Angelina Jolie, but she's been recovered from it. There was a point in time when she was very seriously ill because of anorexia nervosa. The next one is bulimia nervosa. Individual follows a binge and purge eating pattern. Binge means to overeat. Okay, even after you're satiated, you keep eating. That is binge eat. And purge means to puke, to vomit out. Right? So in bulimia nervosa, they're eating. Okay, the difference is anorexia nervosa, they don't eat. In bulimia nervosa, they eat a lot, but after that, they puke. They go on a binge eating and then purging, and they use self-induced vomiting or using laxatives. So they insert fingers in their mouth like that, so that they feel like puking, and they throw up everything. Or sometimes they use certain medicines that make them vomit. So these are the two eating disorders, and it's more common in females than in males. So these are the main things, or main changes that adolescents undergo. And towards the end, we talked about the major concerns that we should take into consideration when we study about adolescents. They are delinquency, substance abuse, and eating disorders. Thank you.